One of my favorite factions in the entire history of Fallout is the Followers of the Apocalypse. So much so that their general title of Follower is even a part of my online handle. The primary reason is because, well, come on, that name is metal. The second reason though is because they're so different from many other factions in the Wasteland. Whereas other factions are about big tech, big armies, and big imagery, the Followers have a very different style. They're scientists, doctors, and educators looking to make the Wasteland a better place by giving people the knowledge to make the world a better place. And if you want to help make the world a better place, consider hitting that subscribe button so that we might continue to spread the glory of Atom and educate the masses on the values of quality. In recent history, Bethesda has created their own version of the Followers of the Apocalypse with the Responders, a group of former doctors, police officers, and firefighters that band together in Appalachia in order to help survivors of the Great War. Fast forward 200 years, and the Responders are still alive and kicking. Well, as much as you can be while hobbling along on your last leg. The Commonwealth Responders is a quest mod for Fallout 4 created by Tuesday, a YouTuber and modder who specializes in settlement builds on his YouTube channel and recreating Fallout 76 content in his mod page. The quest begins as soon as you cross the bridge leading out of Sanctuary. Your Pip-Boy will pick up a distress signal from a group calling themselves the Commonwealth Responders, who are under attack by raiders in Lexington. After investigating the location the signal came from, you find out that all the responders have been killed, save for a single surviving member named Jake, who has been taken to the Corvega assembly plant. Upon arrival, however, you discover that Jake had managed to escape and is following the power lines north out of Lexington. By following the power lines out of Lexington, you soon stumble upon Jake, newly free and with a makeshift campsite. He's clearly upset about his group being destroyed and offers to pay you to help him get back on his feet, tasking you with retrieving a manual for setting up radio communications as well as an old logbook left behind in their Diamond City office, remaining after they had been ejected from the city following their support of the ghouls during their removal. After returning to Jake with the logbook, Jake offers to let you join the Responders, granting you the title of Responder Volunteer. A few days later, you meet back up with Jake as he is attempting to contact other members of the Responders. He succeeds in contacting a fellow responder named Shelly, whose team is being attacked by raiders down near Providence. You then head out into the foothills to locate a hidden responder base, making sure that it's still safe to be inhabited. The next day, you meet up with Jake at the bunker, and the two of you talk about how Shelly and her team can make it out of Providence, the best option being that they return to Boston by boat. To assist Shelly's team in her seabound return, you head south into the swamps looking for an old lighthouse, clearing it out so that Jake can begin fixing it up and help guide them back to Boston. A few days later, Shelly and the other surviving members of the Responders out of Providence arrive at the lighthouse to greet you and Jake. Upon their safe return, Jake reminds you that the boat was hauling a barge full of supplies and informs you that during the trip a cable snapped, resulting in all of the supplies washing onto the shore. Luckily, it wasn't that far away. Unfortunately, a group of raiders have already moved in and start to grab whatever they can, so you head down to clear out the area for Jake's retrieval team and gather the remaining supplies. After retrieving the supplies, Shelly, now the new quartermaster of the Responders, informs you that they only have enough supplies for about a month at most, and that they will need more if they want to continue their operations in the Commonwealth. She tasks you with heading to a federal stockpile that raiders have been having trouble accessing to check for supplies. After clearing out the stockpile, though, you discover that the supplies have been moved to an undisclosed location by the pre-war military. Shelly theorizes that they must have also done the same with the other stockpiles in the region, and that the outposts that have been stationed along the roads may point to where the supplies were headed. After you track down the location of the stockpile and clear it of its ferro problem, you return to Shelly, who's delighted to hear the good news. When you check in with Jake, he also expresses his approval of a successful mission, and even promotes you to a full member of the Responders. He then goes on to further explain his larger plans for the region, which is to turn supplies that you gathered from the stockpile into rations, which the Responders will then give out to the people who need it the most. All is not well though, as Jake is still unsure if the raider attacks were random bad luck or the work of an organized group. As such, he tasks you to speak with the other members of the Responders to get a better idea of what happened in Providence, and to find out if this was an actual coordinated attack. The first person you speak to as part of your investigation is a man named Walker, who was the head of the Responders scouting unit. Walker explains how the Responders had an HQ out in New York, as well as their setup in Diamond City. And around the same time they were being ejected from the Great Green Jewel, they received a distress call from out in New York. Half of the group stayed in Boston, the other half traveled west to help out in New York. Things were fine for a while, but eventually the New York HQ was attacked and overrun by raiders. Multiple attacks over the next couple of weeks forced the remaining survivors out of New York and pushed them down into Providence, before they were able to make their way back to Boston with your assistance. The second person you speak with is Madeline Cross, the group's head doctor. She explains that before the attack, she was called in to treat a patient who claimed to have a broken arm. She, however, claims that his arm wasn't broken, and he seemed more like a raider than a normal scabber, a raider looking to get inside and find out information on a potential target. The final interview involves Quartermaster Shelley herself, who tells you that during her team's scavenging run to the federal stockpile, they discovered notes from the raiders that used to call the place home. The notes detail a desire to leave their current gang and join up with another ran by a raider legend named Ash. Reporting this information back to Jake, he theorizes that because the dual attacks in both Boston and New York happened around the same time, that Ash must have a second in command working with him, and other lieutenants working under him. He goes on to further speculate that based on Walker's reports, that there must be a training ground where the raiders were taught to act in an organized manner. After locating and clearing out the training ground, you report back to Jake, and he informs you that their scouts have discovered the name and location of the remaining lieutenant who was tasked with building weapons for the group. To aid in your mission, the Responder engineers present you with a fancy suit of power armor. After unfairly dominating Wrench in his operation, you report back to Jake, who informs you that their scouts have now found out the name of Ash's lieutenant, a heavy hitter by the name of Jax. While they don't know where Jax is, they did manage to capture a raider who might. You head over to the old shipping depot behind Fort Hagen where the raider is being held captive and meet up with Allison and Paul, the two interrogators. Paul, the bad cop in this situation, says that all it would take to get the information on Jax that they're looking for is a few tools and some time, whereas Allison is more in favor of using a drug called Day Tripper to get the location. Siding with Allison, you head over to the local pharmacy in Lexington to pick up some happy pills. Upon your return, Allison informs you that during their continued conversation with the captive raider, he let slip that they have plans to destroy the Walton Dam, something that the Responders have first-hand experience with. So you boot Scoot and Boogie over to the dam, kill some raiders, and head back to give the news that Day Tripper worked, and that they now know where Jax is located. After taking out Jax and his goons, you find a note on his body that was meant to be sent to Ash, mentioning how that they know that someone is hunting them, and that they need to find a new place to live, specifically mentioning a tunnel that Ash is currently hiding in. Relaying this information to Jake, he theorizes that the tunnel in question must be the Mass Pike Tunnel, as it's the only one in the area large enough to act as a raider stronghold. So you head over there, kill some ghouls, kill some raiders, and then report to Jake to let him know that they won't be a problem anymore for the Responders. Jake, relieved that the danger to the Responders has been dealt with, asks you to check in with the other members to finish up a few more tasks to complete their reorganization in Boston. After speaking with Walker, Dr. Cross, and Edwards, the leader of the Fire Breathers, you are tasked with 3 more missions. To locate the Fire Breathers that were sent towards the edge of the glowing sea to look for fire trucks, gather blood packets from an old blood bank, and clear out some raiders that are hanging around near an old rationing site that the Responders want to start up again. After completing these missions, you are given 2 final tasks: clearing out super mutants from an old hospital that the Responders want to use for medical purposes, and collecting red and blue paint for advertisements. After that, Jake thanks you for your help, gives you 1 final gift, and the story concludes. Let's start off the reflection with the TLDR. The Commonwealth Responders is a very well-made mod from a first-time quest modder, but it's very clear that this is his first time creating a quest mod, and it shows. There were awkward moments where one of the objectives of the quest was to just leave an area, and from what I have seen on the comments section of this mod, it seems to be due to Tuesday's current level of experience with making quest mods. It's not a negative, but it just goes to show that for as well made as this mod is, it's still very much a my first quest mod creation. Another example of this comes from how the mod's missions roll out. often requiring the player to either be starting a new game or be willing to walk a very familiar path despite possibly being hours past that point. This becomes very apparent with how you actually start the mod, being required to cross the bridge leading out of Sanctuary to have the radio signal trigger. While it's not a bad idea to have a radio signal trigger within a certain area from a fixed point, similar to how you encounter Paladin Dance for the first time, having it set to where the mission can only be activated by entering a very fixed point like that is awkward at best and confusing at worst. Plus, this doesn't even take into consideration the fact that not everybody will cross the bridge leading out of Sanctuary. Some people will hop the river, other people will go north, some people will go south. Having the mod specifically insert itself into the main game is also tricky, for while it can work well, such as adding quest-specific characters to different locations, having these story beats be dependent on the vanilla setting just doesn't work. For example, when I went to go kill Jax, the second in command of the organized raider army, I had already cleared out the spot where he was placed, so it just seemed like Jax was forever alone in it on top of some random roof in Boston. It made for an easy mission, but lacked the intensity that I think Tuesday was looking for. These aspects dealt more specifically with the mechanics of the mod, which, as a first-time quest mod creator, I can't knock him too hard. Hell, I couldn't make this stuff, so I have to applaud him for what he's made, because it's at least competent. Unluckily for Tuesday, though, I spent the better part of 5 years out of high school studying film, story construction specifically, and oh boy, that ball must have been covered with cooking oil because you dropped the ball over and over and over again. Two of the biggest issues I had with this mod's plot were plot conveniences and speculation becoming fact. First, let's talk about plot conveniences that I noticed. After Jake finishes talking with Kelly over the radio, he mentions how it seems like her group is in trouble, and without any external information or dialogue, you all of a sudden not only know that there is a hidden bunker that the responders used to use in the Commonwealth, but you know exactly where it's located. Despite Shelley's frankly gut-wrenching pleas for help from Jake over the radio.
Jake, please. Please help us. I don't want to die here.
Oh, jeez. After you fix the lighthouse, you just wait 2 days and her crew are perfectly fine and never mention how they escaped from what sounded like a pretty dire situation. And finally, after getting settled at the bunker, Jake speaks with the player and talks about how he's still uneasy about whether or not the raider attacks were random or the works of some larger group. However, moments later in that exact same interaction, he all of a sudden is 100% convinced that the attacks must have been related without any additional outside information to back up his thought process, nor additional dialogue from the player or other NPCs. A lot of the plot conveniences that I mentioned are just that, conveniences. You just so happen to know where the bunker is. Jake just so happens to come to the conclusion about the organized raiders with no additional information. It's not completely outside of the realm of possibility that they would, but because this is a game, it breaks the cardinal rule of show, don't tell. And because we didn't see these things happen, or we don't see the cognitive thought process, it just seems too convenient. Again, I'm not knocking Tuesday. He's working with what he's got. But these are some things I noticed, and I wanted to point them out just because, well, I felt that they were noteworthy. As far as speculation becoming fact, while this wasn't as prolific as the plot conveniences I saw, there were still some huge leaps in logic. Once you report back to Shelley after attacking the federal stockpile, she comes to the assumption that because the military moved supplies from one stockpile, that they must have done the same with the others in the area. And after you start hunting down the raider underbosses, Jake theorizes that because the raiders seem so organized, that there must be a training ground that they're being taught to fight at. These points fall under the same sort of show, don't tell, rule-breaking thing. Again, it's not completely out of the question that Jake would theorize that there has to be a training ground for the raiders, or that Shelley comes to the realization that all of the stockpiles in the area have been relocated. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but because we as the player don't see the thought process that led to that conclusion, it just kind of seems, again, convenient. As a matter of fact, there was an actual good example of how players came to the same conclusion based on information presented in the mod. When you're sent to go kill Jax, you find a note on him that was meant to get passed to Ash, telling him that they're being hunted and to move house. Based on the context of the note, Jake comes to the conclusion that the Mass Pike Tunnel makes the most sense because of its size and his pre-existing knowledge of the area, which we know he has because he's talked about operating out of Diamond City, and was one of the responders to stay behind after they split their forces to help New York. This is the kind of thing that I would have liked to have seen applied to the other points that I've mentioned. When you're writing a story, to have characters come to certain conclusions or for them to reach certain decisions, you have to show that there's an actual A to B to C plot line. And finally, I want to finish my critique with some things that I felt were more missed opportunities and not something that directly impacted the quality of the mod itself. As a way to give more context as to how Shelley and the other responders made it out of Providence, it would have been cool to have been tasked with finding more information about Providence from locations in the Commonwealth. Libraries with old maps, Vault-Tech's regional office, police headquarters. Use the information from these locations, radio them back to Shelley, and help them look for supplies, means of escape from the raiders, and even go so far to actually help them look for the boat that they arrive in Boston. Being based out of New York, it would make sense that the responders don't know much about Providence, Rhode Island, so helping them by gathering knowledge and information both fits with their theme as a faction, as well as giving context for their exodus from the city. When you meet up with Paul and Allison, the two members of the responders holding the captured raider for interrogation, it would have been cool to get to choose who to side with. Side with Paul and you could actually see, or maybe even help, him torture this raider for information, perhaps even resulting in his death, which could lead to you being required to find Jax another way. Side with Allison and you could go about the mission as normal, but be part of the probing for information, speak with the raider directly. Allison says that while under the influence, she managed to talk to him about his childhood, so why not make it a speech option that, if you take this route, you can actually rehabilitate the raider and he becomes a member of the responders. That would be cool. The last few missions, getting paint and clearing out the old rationing site, were super interesting, and I would have liked to have seen smaller, more thematic quests like those. Killing raiders is all well and good, but what about quests where you make one of your settlements a responder HQ? Like, I can envision Dead Man's Alley being turned into a care center, as well as a supply depot for rations going to the nearby old rationing site, as well as being sent out to different settlements. It also would have been really cool to see more responders at locations that you have reclaimed or cleared out for them. The little setup at the bunker was cool and all, but given how we saw other responders at the lighthouse, it would have been cool to see them more often in other locations that you claimed for the responders. These are, of course, just my thoughts on how the mod could be improved, and I know they might not be within Tuesday's modding capabilities at this point, but my larger point here is to encourage him and other modders to think outside the box. Too many quests are just, go here, kill these guys, read note, go here, kill these guys, read note. Or are location mods like, go here, look around, read notes, find treasure, the end. Never be afraid to explore new ideas for what people can do in a quest. With critiques and suggestions out of the way, let's talk about what the mod did well. The responders' outfits, the fire axe, and all the settlement items you're given by the end of the mod are all S tier in quality and absolutely beautiful. I made the mistake of not using the axe in the mod, but I played with it off screen, and I can tell you that it's great being able to go around and ask people questions. Hey, you're the one who clicked on this video. Fun fact, I talked about this mod briefly with Empire Waste. Go check them out on Twitter and check out their work in progress mod. I'm super looking forward to reviewing it. They actually told me that the model for the fire axe used in the mod was originally used in an early build of Fallout Miami. But because the team restart production, the asset went unused and unclaimed, making it effectively a unique asset to Tuesday's Responder mod. Very cool. Voice acting was great, and even though it seemed like Tuesday had to voice a few characters himself, all of the voices fit perfectly with their characters. Also, I don't know why exactly, but my favorite mission in this entire mod was going down and getting the old lighthouse working again, so that Shelly and her team could sail into Boston. Maybe it was because we got to do stuff down by the shore, which not a lot of quests take place by, or perhaps it was the simplicity of the quest. Either way, I loved it, and it was great to see other responders puttering about after she landed as if they had gotten off the boat and were waiting for their next instructions. Overall, the Commonwealth Responders is the first quest mod by a modder and content creator skilled in making outfits, homes, and settlement builds. While there is undoubtedly room for improvement, what there is clearly made with passion for his craft and a desire to make something of a high quality. Tuesday, you may have room to grow, but you made a damn fine mod. Next time, just let me wear the Responders version of the Railroad heavy armor though. Ooh, Responder armor coat. I can't wear this armor, the Responder armor, or the Responder skinned armor with my actual under the outfit armor.
See that? Surprise, then disappointment.
Also, if you or any other quest modders are looking for someone to quality control your script, hit me up. While I may be lacking in the jokes department, I more than make up for it with my storytelling skills. Thank you for watching my review of the Commonwealth Responders by Tuesday. You can find a link to his mod down in the description below, as well as links to all my socials. Follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and check out my Discord channel. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to see more reviews, gameplay, and topic videos. As always, I've been Follower Toshi. I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all out there in the wasteland.